Hey guys, welcome back to the history of Stickmen. Today we will be going over season 2 and pretty much most of 2023 for Stickmen, which I consider to be the golden age of Stickmen. Anywho, let's get started. But one thing I forgot to mention in the last episode is that on December 30th, the same day as Return of the Robo King, we actually made some Stickmen merch. That's when we made our first Stickmen merch. So that was pretty cool. But we didn't promote it until June for some reason, so yeah, that was kind of dumb, honestly. But anywho, let's get into it. So, it was a brand new year, and Stickmen was coming back stronger than ever with season 2, episode 1, Stickmen Showbiz. Now, I had spent Now, Showbiz was, the first episode. But, basically what happened was I worked on it through most of January, and it finished it when I was at my cousin's house for a little bit. The premise was, a common thing for Season 2, specifically Showbiz, was that this was like the direct aftermath of Return of the Robo King. And in Showbiz especially, you can definitely see how it's kind of an aftermath of sorts. I mean, though, that's what Count Showtime's play is about. It was also the first Stickman episode to feature a song, being Welcome to Stickville, Welcome to Stickville. So yeah, that was pretty nice. And it was also the longest because of said song. Return of the Robo King was this huge event episode, only to be immediately dethroned by, honestly, a really simple episode when it comes to length. And it's also my second most viewed episode, only behind the first episode of the entire series. Despite all that, I'm not actually all that proud of it. I'm honestly kind of disappointed in it. Allow me to explain, okay? So, basically, production was a nightmare because towards the end of 2022, but especially during early 2023, my iPad went through dead zone. Dun, dun, dun. Basically, I'd draw, then it'd immediately get erased and stuff. And it was super annoying, bro. Oh my god. And the worst part is it's even started to pop up on this iPad. Anyway. Excuse me there, I just burped. Wow. So that kind of made production not very fun. Also, I feel like the episode was kind of lazy with the song taking up 90% of it. And the others just being like 10%. Also, I'm not very happy with the Count Showtime twist. I feel like the twist villain didn't really make too much sense. Also, I'm not too happy about how Cyan was just shoehorned in there. Because, the reason why Cyan was shoehorned in there was because I'd gotten so used to writing for the double at that point, but I didn't really know how to go back to just one black, so I kind of needed another character to be with him. And you can kind of even still see this in modern Stickman with Black and Supervillain and stuff, but this Cyan just doesn't really make any sense in this episode, so I don't really like that. But I do like the character Count Showtime. And luckily I did fix it with All Washed Up, which we'll get to in the next part. Anyway, on to Date Night. Now, I kind of wanted to... This one was kind of simple. I wanted it to be like a Valentine's Day episode. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I did. I spent the rest of January working on it and managed to get it out on February 1st. And, while Dead Zone was still a nightmare, I honestly had a lot more fun making this episode, and I actually really like Date Night. Date Night's a lot of fun. Not really much else to say on Date Night, per se. Alright, so, anyway, next up, we have Origin of the Supervillain. Now, this is the first episode in the entire series which didn't feature Black at all. So that was a pretty big monumental thing. I had fun making Origin of the Supervillain. It was a cool insight into Supervillain's past. I'd already kind of written Supervillain's past, with the whole cardboard suit stuff in Ballad of the Supervillain, which we went over last time. So a lot of the same stuff was reused, since I had already kind of written Supervillain's backstory back in December. So, yeah, that was certainly nice that I could just yeah, the episode is kind of free and easy. I finished the episode at my cousin's house again. We were down there for his birthday this time. And I actually sang All Alone in a home in the car down there. So that's kind of why the audio is kind of screwed up. But yeah, that makes... But I finished it like the next day. And yeah, I'm pretty proud of it. It's one of my dad's favorite episodes, so that's nice. Anyway, the next episode was Catch You on the Rewind, baby, which basically was just them going back in time. I'm just going back, kind of thing, you know. The episode wasn't all too notable, except for it was more just like a cool back to the past trek. But the one cool thing that it did was at the end of the episode, I put since the first episode didn't get much representation up until the point it went from supervillain to the battle with the remote, I went from the final rewind to literally just be episode 1 again. I literally put the two videos together, which was honestly really cool. And, yeah. Then, tragedy struck. And I mean tragedy. My iPad broke. Literally on the same day. I am super lucky and super blessed that I managed to Catch You on the Rewind up right before my iPad broke on March 3rd, because, oh boy, that wouldn't have been good. And the worst part is, I was planning an April Fool's Day episode, being the erasing, which we'll get into later. And I really wanted to release it on April 1st. It was like my first deadline of sorts. Like my first canon deadline. And I was really upset about this because, oh my god, I just broke my iPad. My iPad just broke, probably because of the dead zone. Yeah, no, it died. Rip, bro, it's over. So, I had to wait, and anxious for a couple weeks, you know. Oh my god. Mom said she'd get me a new iPad soon, so I was just waiting. Like, oh, come on. Like, okay, need to get the erasing out pretty soon. After what felt like forever, finally, on March 17th, I finally received the iPad on which I'm recording this today. So, that's pretty nice. Yeah. And, I started working on the erasing. And, fun little fact, I even finished before April 1st. So, finished before April 1st, but I wasn't going to upload it, obviously, since it was an April 1st video. But I did send it to my dad early, and it was actually personalized a little, where, you know, the whole Nicholas God saying at the end, I got my eye on you, viewer. I actually included my dad's first, middle, and last name, you know, to scare him a little bit, make him pee his little panties. But obviously I changed it once. I also changed, like, the text on, like, the sign that says, "Doesn't this door make you never want to leave?" type thing. But that's kind of a small detail, small difference. But the erasing was an April Fool's episode. It wasn't technically canon. It was canon to a certain degree. Basically, my headcanon is that Nicholas God erased everyone as an April Fool's joke, but then put everyone back together without memory of it. So yeah, that was pretty. that was kind of messed up. And the way I was gonna do it was I was actually gonna make a video where Nicholas God actually addresses the audience, like, "Hey, sorry, it was just an April Fool's joke," but I forgot about it and it fell out of production. Also, this was a monumental episode because it was the first one to feature full dialogue. Like, basically, I realized that now I needed more than just, like, you know, mime to tell, like, the stories I wanted to tell. So, yeah, that's when I switched to full dialogue, finally. So, that was really nice. Then, the next episode was Tales from the Resistance. I was with my dad over spring break, so that was really cool. Tales from... Not really too much to say about the production of Tales from the Resistance. However, something interesting did end up happening. My dad posted my Stickmen, all 17 Stickmen episodes. We combined them into a compilation to his BitChute channel that he used to run, and it racked up some views. I got a lot of views from that. it pulled a lot of views since he had a fairly large following. So basically, pretty much a lot of the future episodes they would release on BitChute as well as YouTube. And yeah, the BitChute audience is where most of my actual views came in. So yeah, YouTube was kind of meh on it. Stickman was kind of getting dunked on a little. I mean, yeah, this was still the time when Stickman was racking up fairly high views, but I mean, yeah, it definitely was. It was definitely gonna crash. Definitely not as good as it was when it first debuted. Then came Yellow's Return, baby. Yellow's Return was like the big kahuna of episodes. It was my biggest episode. It was not only my first episode to pass 2 minutes, but also my first episode to pass 3 minutes. Dang. And boy, that was accomplishing. And the best part of the song was easily Yellow's time. Like, I took everything that I learned about the previous songs and just boom. It was so friggin' awesome, dude. You have no clue just how awesome Yellow's time is. Like, that's probably my best song that I've ever written. And that was honestly the highlight of the episode. That and the story and everything. Yeah, Yellow's Return just really, really holds a special place in my heart. And yeah, that one was also posted to BitChute. So that was nice. Starting the whole new short arc. Red's Retaliation came next. I wanted to make a little episode to kind of promote Stickman Race, so yeah, it's kind of all the interesting things I have to say about Red's Retaliation. It's a good episode, though. It's a fun one. Then came Stickman Island Part 1, where this was the first ever 6-parter for Stickman. I did the whole na-na-na-na-na intro first, and then I'd put it together for each episode. So on May 27th, bringing in the summer, Stickman Island Part 1 was released. And yeah, it was like the first real time that the Stickmen were really away from Stickville, so it was kind of huge. Like, I mean, yeah, they venture far from Stickville a lot now, but this was like the first time where they were really far away from Stickville. In fact, one of the ending lines of The Arrival is, "We're not in Stickville anymore, are we?" So yeah, that's really nice. And then it was on to summer 2023, which is when I popped off. Like, I'm not even kidding. I popped off. I was releasing episodes constantly. Like, I started with the Stick Tribe, which took a few days in production, but once I got it rolling, it started rolling. Now, this was definitely the most insane Stickman episode I think I've ever drawn and written. Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of out there jokes and stuff, and it's really funny. Like, it was definitely one of the funniest Stickman episodes, but I mean, the humor is also probably the most adult it's ever been. Like, holy crap. I don't know what I was on when I was writing the Stick Tribe, but like, it's insane, bro. But nevertheless, a couple days later, Ancient Robots. A couple days later, the Stick Wizard. A couple days later, The Escape. And here's a fun little fact. I actually miscounted. I thought it was the 5-parter was going to end at, since Stickman Island started at episode 20 and ended at 25 of the entire series. I thought it was going to do that with just the first 5 parts. Yeah, The Escape was where the story was actually supposed to end, but then I realized, crap, I've been doing math wrong. And so I added Dominion, where the Stick Wizard comes to Stickville. And I'm honestly glad I did that, because I feel like it's definitely a more finite way to end it, rather than just the island being engulfed in flames, and then just them leaving. I really liked it. Then I started working on Dominion. I was actually going with my family to a beach house. Yeah, on like the beach trip for like the middle of summer. Well, with my mom's side of the family. So I worked on it there. So that was pretty nice. And I'm pretty sure I actually finished it on either June 26th or 27th, which is, if it was June 27th, then it was precisely, Stickman Island lasted for exactly 1 month, which is kind of insane. Then, a couple days later, on the last day of the trip, in fact, it was when I was when we were driving to Meemaw's house for me to go back to my dad the next day. I finished Roll the Dice, which had another song, and it's actually one of the first Stickman episodes with a proper moral, being an anti-gambling message, which is kind of crazy. Yeah. Then, a couple days later, came the birthday. Now, this case is honestly very interesting, because for the longest time, I did not know where to put the birthday. What to do with the birthday. Because, well, basically, the birthday was episode 27. And back earlier that year, in, like, February, March, and stuff, I had basically already graphed the entire series. Like, even from then to the final test. But for some odd reason, I could not for the life of me figure out what to do for episode 27, bro. One of the concepts I actually considered was the actual story for Return of the Double, which, I mean, hey, that's releasing this summer, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, that was one of the concepts I considered for episode 27. Basically just the story that would turn into Return of the Double, which you'll see in the coming months. But I eventually settled on adapting Stickmen the Birthday. You see, basically, here's something funny. Back then my dad would do all sorts of things related to Stickmen. He'd do good to evil lists, frame by frames, weakest to power scalings. Yeah, he'd do all sorts of that stuff. And for my birthday that year, one of the best birthdays ever, it was a lot of fun. He made a story, an original Stickman story using past characters, called Stickman the Birthday, which is the actual birthday episode is loosely based off of. You see, it has the same concept with Nicholas Scott wanting to erase everyone, but some of the differences are, Dad actually included the double, which, I mean, he was dead by then, but, I mean, he just wanted to include the double, and, the whole climax with Black being the only one left, and him erasing everything, yeah, that wasn't originally there. And, of course, the absolute awful song that is, Happy Birthday, Nicholas. God, I hate that song so much. What was I thinking? Anyway, I just decided that'd be a nice little surprise for Dad. I think he'd really like it, and it was the best idea for episode 27 I could come up with, so that's what I did. The next episode was Roar of the Dragon, which was the first episode to feature, three villains, all were different motives, but then they come together at the end, so that was pretty cool. I really like Roar of the Dragon. Then for Return to the Third Dimension, this one was interesting. It was basically like what we did for Revenge of the Supervillain. We got together and started doing he did the third dimension stuff and things, so he pretty much did the entire episode. The character Home Skillet actually derived from a joke where Dad started calling everything Home Skillet, from Tails Home Skillet from Sonic to Topwing Home Skillet, and so as a little tongue-in-cheek joke, we decided to make the map guy named Home Skillet, so that was pretty funny. But the most interesting part of this episode was the segment where they're exploring the third dimension, and they're walking through a bunch of different backgrounds. I walked around our town at the time, Grove Ridge, and snapped a bunch of different shots for this segment, as well as our house. So, just for that one segment, because I thought it'd be funny. And I also took some other photos from, video games that are in my camera roll. So, yeah, that turned out to be a pretty iconic moment. Then, after that, another really iconic moment was the finale where they're going through the portals, transitioning. Oh, God, that's so cool. For the next episode, the 30th adventure, I really wanted it to be a milestone because it was episode 30, baby. The 30th adventure, the 30th Stickman episode. So, I centered the whole thing around it being 30. Themed, and I even posted the opening with all the characters coming together fighting a bank robbery to YouTube. I'd also done a similar thing with Dominion for Stickman Island with the intro, but I mean this one was like a full-on opening. This also introduced Supervillain's daughter, Dark Pink, and yeah, it was a huge episode. Had Supervillain take over Stickville at the end. And funnily enough, it was actually released on July 30th, 2023, which is honestly insane. Which is honestly an insane coincidence. I hadn't even planned it that way, but it's so perfect. And it was actually the last Stickman episode that we did that summer because I had moved down to Florida and they start super early, which is super stupid. So I made the final 4 episodes of Stickman. In a very specific way. You see, every Sunday, pretty much, Dad would always be about an episode behind when it came to uploading one to his BitChute. So, yeah, he'd always be like 1 episode behind. So he'd always post a new episode on Sunday. So that gave me the idea. But he had finally caught up by like August when I was back in school. So that gave me an idea. I would make Stickman a Saturday morning cartoon because I was like into Saturday morning cartoons because I was watching Disney Channel at the time. So I was like, yeah, that'll be cool. So that's what I did. Supervillain Apocalypse Part 1, Saturday, August 12th, 2023. Supervillain Apocalypse Part 2, Saturday, August 19th, 2023. Supervillain Apocalypse Part 3, Saturday, August 26th, 2023. And the finale, A Brief Reunion, Saturday, September 2nd, 2023. I'm honestly really impressed with myself towards the end of Season 2 that I managed to cram in getting an episode out every Saturday, which was honestly super impressive just because of how big these final episodes were. But yeah. For Supervillain Apocalypse Part 1, I kind of wanted to make it goofy and stuff. Then for the final one, I wanted to have him take his gloves off. For the storyboard section in Supervillain Apocalypse Part 3, I'd actually drawn that storyboard months earlier. So, yeah. It's an interesting little tidbit. Anyway, that's about it for Season 2, actually. Season 2 was one of the smoothest seasons of Stickman. It's why I consider 2023 to be the golden age of Stickman, just because of how fast these episodes are rolled out. I mean, Season 2 was definitely the biggest Season 2 with 23 episodes. Wow. And this was definitely pretty awesome. However, I think Season 2 made me get a little bit overconfident and cocky because, let's just say, Season 3 was a bit of a nightmare. But we'll get to that next time. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. See you guys later. Bye!